Hello, Year 7. Welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at dividing with fractions. Okay, last lesson we looked at multiplying, and we know that multiplying and dividing are opposites. So how do we go about dividing fractions? Well, it's very similar, but there's one extra step that we have to do in. And before we can learn about that, we need to understand a new word, which is this one here, reciprocal. Okay, and the reciprocal is just the upside down version of a fraction. So if I have a fraction 2/3, the reciprocal is 3/2, where we flip it upside down. So the top becomes the bottom and the bottom becomes the top. So let's look at a few examples here where we just need to find the reciprocal of these numbers. So 3/8, if we were to turn it upside down, is going to be 8/3. Okay, simple enough. Now, the reciprocal of 5, now we know that 5 is the same as 5/1. So the reciprocal is just going to be 1/5. So whenever you have a whole number, the top number is going to become 1. And then the bottom number is whatever that number was. Okay, now for this last example here, we have a mixed numeral. And guess what? Yes, we have to convert the mixed numeral into an improper fraction first before we can find the reciprocal. So this is going to become, now remember the way that we convert to improper fractions is we need to multiply the number out the front by the number on the bottom. So how many fourths or quarters are there in 2? Well, there's going to be 2 times 4. Okay, there's going to be 2 times 4, and then we've got plus 3/4. So it's going to be plus 3. And that's going to be all over 4. And so the number is 2 times 8 is 8 plus 3 is, 2 times 4 is 8 plus 3 is 11. So we've got 11/4. So the reciprocal is therefore going to be 4/11. Okay, instead of 11/4, it becomes 4/11. Okay, now we know that our fraction, okay, the line that separates the two can also be shown as dividing by. Okay, so 3/8 is the same as 3 divided by 8. Now, when we divide by a fraction, it's almost as if we're dividing and then dividing again. Okay, and now just like similar to the idea of subtracting and then subtracting again, or having two negatives next to each other, that's going to cancel out and become the opposite. So when you divide by something and divide by it again, it's the same as multiplying. So we're going to learn a new trick here, which is going to help us to divide by or using fractions. And that is, we flip the fraction and then multiply. So flip and multiply when we're dividing by fractions. So let's look at an example here. We've got 7 divided by 1/3. Now we only flip the right fraction. We don't flip the left one. It's the one that's after the divided by sign that we're going to flip. We leave the one at the front. So it becomes 7, and we're going to flip that. So instead of 1/3, it becomes 3/1, and it's going to be times 3. Now we know that 7 times 3/1 is just the same as 7 times 3. So that's going to be 21. Okay, we flip the second fraction and multiply. Let's look at this next example here. We've got 3/4. We're going to leave that one. And then we've got divided by 1/5. We're going to flip that second fraction and then multiply. So it becomes 3/4 times 5/1. Now remember, when we multiply, you just multiply the top with the top and the bottom with the bottom. So we get 15/4 as our answer here. Okay, last example here. Guess what? We've got some mixed numerals and we need to convert them into improper fractions first. Okay, always better to work with improper fractions. So we have 2 and 1/3. So we've got 3 times 2/3 in 2. So it's going to be 2 times 3 plus 1/3. That's our first fraction. And then we're dividing by, so we've got how many fifths in 2? We've got 2 times 5/5. plus 4 over 5. So let's simplify this first before we do anything. So 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7/3 divided by 2 times 5 is 10 plus 4 is 14 over 5. Okay, now we've converted it into improper fractions. We're now going to flip the second fraction and multiply. So it becomes 7 over 3 times 5 over 14. And then 7 times 5 is going to be 35. 3 times 14, okay, is going to be 3 times 10, which is 30, plus 3 times 4, which is 12. So it's going to be 42. Okay, and there we have our answer. Now, last thing that we can do with this one is we're going to check for any common factors. Okay, I know that 7 goes into 35. It also goes into 42. So I'm going to divide top and bottom by 7. So I get a simpler answer, and it's going to become 5 over 6. So that ended up being quite a long question, and you can see how I've done my steps down the page showing all my working to get to my answer there. So sometimes it's really important to show those multiple steps, convert it into an improper fraction, flip the second one and multiply, times top with top, bottom with bottom, and then simplify by dividing by a common factor if possible. Okay. Good luck today, Year 7. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.